Hello everyone, happy Sunday. I hope you're well and you're as healthy as could be expected. And I hate to quote, I'm sure, every single corporate email that you've received recently, but in these unprecedented times, I hope that everyone is well stocked up on toilet paper. Okay, let's get to the real reason that you're watching this video today. You clicked the play button because you want to know what my beginner's guide to writing a money-making post on Medium is. Here's what I'm gonna do. I have 6 do's and don'ts for you. After my tip, I'm gonna say, instead of this, do that. And that's gonna help you restructure existing stories and write better stories going forward. Before we get into that, I wanna talk to you a bit about why you should care. Like, why should you change the way that you're writing your stories right now? Let me set the scene for you. Medium isn't like other blogging platforms. They don't follow to read your diary like a lot of WordPress people or like Instagram celebrities, that kind of thing. They follow you because of what you write about and because they like the way that you write it. This is intentional. It's built in for Medium from the ground up. From the second that you create a profile, you're prompted to choose topics to follow, not authors. Your suggested stories by topic, stories get distributed to you by topic. Publications are collections of stories that are collected by topic. You guessed it. Once you're a writer, you'll find that even though it is good to get followers and it's relatively straightforward, having followers isn't necessarily a ticket to success. I have, 7,000 or so, and I don't get anywhere near 7,000 views on most of my stories because they're distributed by topic, not by who people follow. This is counterintuitive to a lot of writers. We come onto Medium wanting to share our thoughts, our stories, our experiences, and the good news is Medium is a great place for that. The bad news is it means that you might have to change the way you think about your current writing. So let's get into our 6 tips. Number 1, keep I's, my's, and me's to a minimum. When you write that, you're telling the reader that this is a story about you. And the reader, they might like you, but they're not reading because they want to read more about you. They're reading because they want to learn something new, or they want to be entertained, or they want to get a new perspective on something. Instead of writing, I did X and Y happened, like I went to the movies on my first date and my boyfriend at the time married me. You should write, people who go to the movies for their first date will find that their boyfriends typically marry them because XYZ as per what I experienced. That helps the reader show that the story that you've written, while based around your experiences, is focused around them, that they're gonna get something from reading this story. Number 2, keep the introduction and the conclusion reader focused. So I see a lot of people start off introductions like, I want to tell this story because I did da-da-da-da-da and I did this, and that kind of plays into the last tip. That's great that you have this experience and you have this wealth of knowledge and lived life that you can share with people, but make sure that you don't start off with that, because if you do, it might turn people off, it might alienate them from the very first sentence that you write. And furthermore, don't sign off your stories like love Zuli or love whoever it is that you're writing. Again, that's more blog, that's more diary-like, and on Medium, they're following you because of the topics that you write about and because they like your voice. What you can do instead is sign off with a conclusion, kind of outline how they should think or feel or do after they read your story. Give them a real concrete takeaway. Tip number 3, what you should do is use your personal experience to generate universal takeaways. The great thing about Medium is that it's not full of technical how-to articles, right? There's space here for you to write about your first heartbreak, about what it was like to give birth for the first time or the second time or the 5th time, or what you think about interior lighting, right? Like, Medium is yours to make it your own, and as long as you're passionate about it, you will find that there is an audience of people interested in you. But what you should do is use that personal experience to generate universal takeaways. And what that means is that you're not going to be writing a diary entry. So instead, explain how your experience or your thoughts or your heartbreak or whatever taught you a life lesson that anybody could learn, and that you're actually giving the reader kind of a shortcut by telling them your story. Number 4, do not end your story with a solicit for comments. This is something I see in a lot of ex-WordPress bloggers, like, what did you think? Leave a comment, XOXO Zuli. The reason you don't want to do that is because Medium kind of frowns against that. They want all interaction to be genuine, not prompted. So what you can do instead is kind of put questions throughout your story, or write provoking statements, something that's gonna make people think like, that changed the way I thought and I really wanna tell the author that. Or, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question, but here's my best guess. But when you end your story with that, that's a little artificial. So instead, kind of seeding your story with questions throughout, you're gonna prompt a much more natural, genuine commenting. Number 5, do not write and hit publish. Okay, I wanna qualify that because you absolutely should write and you absolutely should hit publish, but what a lot of people are missing is that step in between. Read your story out loud. So many people resist doing this, and honestly, I don't know why. Maybe because it kind of feels cringy to read your own work, but you have to set that aside. You have to read your story because that's the only way you're gonna know how it sounds. If you find yourself tripping up over sentences, if you find yourself thinking, oh, the paragraph is going on forever, chances are your reader is too. While people follow by topic, they're also following for tone, for story. Reading aloud means that you can make sure that your story is following somewhere in between super academic and super diary-like. You want something in between, something like you're explaining to a group of acquaintances or a group of friends something that you care deeply about, because at the end of the day, that is exactly what you're doing on Medium. Number 6, do not assume prior knowledge. So remember how I said earlier that having followers doesn't mean much? That means that if somebody reads your story on day 1 and you publish a kind of follow-up to that on day 2, they're not necessarily going to see day 1 or day 2. They might see the second one, they might see the first one. It's going to be quite a small subset of people that see both. And while that's possible, it's unlikely. Medium is driven by topic, remember, not individual. So I see a lot of people writing kind of WordPress and writing like, oh, you might remember from my last story that I experienced XYZ, and I want to continue on what that journey taught me. When you start your stories like this, you might get the reader to go back and trawl through your old stories to find part 1, or you might make them think like, oh, this is already halfway through, I don't want to read this. Imagine you go to the library and you're super interested in fantasy and you see a really cool looking book and it's the second one in a series, not the first. You might make an effort to go find the first one, but how much easier would it be if it was already there or if the story was self-contained, right? So instead, provide all the context you need in the introduction. Assume no knowledge. If you really want, you can link to a prior story to provide additional context, but on Medium, every story should stand on its own. If they only read one, then they'll know everything there is to know about what you're trying to tell them today. Those are my 6 tips for writing money-making stories on Medium. These 6 tips are going to help you play nicely with Medium's curation system, which means that the people behind the scenes at Medium who decide who should be reading what every day will like your articles more. It also means that the audience on Medium will like yours more as well. I want to be 100% clear here though. This does not mean that you should only write self-help listicles. Medium is an amazing place. It's one of the few places I think on the web that you can actually write honestly and with a lot of vulnerability, and that's going to make your stories appealing to people. People aren't just here to read about startups. They're here to learn and to feel and to grow as people. So that means that if you have all those stories inside of you, everything that I've just said, if you've done that already, that doesn't mean your stories are bad or that they don't belong here. It just means that they need a little bit of tweaking to present their best selves to the people reading them and the best selves to the Medium staff who are looking through deciding which ones they should promote and which ones they shouldn't. All this does is make sure that your stories are valuable for the people reading them. That's what I love about Medium. It doesn't try to force you to write 10 ways to be more productive at 4 in the morning, right? It lets you write about whatever you want, and as long as you do it in a way that's valuable for other people reading it, you're gonna go far. In conclusion, Medium is not your diary, but it's also not a site that's only for tech bros. There's space here for you to write about what you love, and the benefit of that is that you're gonna make money doing it. I hope that you enjoyed this video and you learned something. If you do have any questions or you feel like I left something out, please feel free to let me know and I'll do my best to answer. And I look forward to seeing you all next Sunday. All right, bye everyone.